Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. The busy holiday season is here, and Uncommon Goods makes it less stressful with incredible hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. Gifts to spark joy, wonder, delight, and that's exactly what I wanted feeling. Hey, y'all, I ordered a super cool piece. It's a candle with a sculpture of LSU's Tiger Stadium on top of it. And each officially licensed laser cut wooden replica features up to 4 layers of detail, creating a bird's eye view of a specific football field, seating section, and more. And every label includes your stadium's name, the team's logo, and school location. And it has a coconut, soy, vegan wax infused with sandalwood smell that creates tailgates and touchdown scent profile, reminiscent of game day. It's invigorating like fresh cut grass and nostalgic like smoke from a pre-game grill, and calming like the crisp autumn air of a new semester on campus. Y'all, I love it. I have it at the base of my TV, and I'm ready to watch the Tigers play on Saturday night, right? Uncommon Goods. Look, when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. And many of their handcrafted products are made in small batches. So shop now before they sell out this holiday season. Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high quality, unique, and often handmade or made in the U.S. They have the most meaningful, out of the ordinary gifts anywhere. They even have gifts you can personalize. From holiday hosts and hostess gift to the coolest finds for kids to hits for everyone from the book lovers to diehard sports fans. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone, not the same old selections you can just find anywhere. And with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $3 million to date. So to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/RLRC. That's uncommongoods.com/RLRC for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, your running's over, that's for sure.
Warning, this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature and should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or from some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims. My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own 2 eyes. If you're going to get offended, please turn this podcast off now. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. I want to thank you all for tuning in and listening. I got a hell of a story for you today. I want to thank all my Patreon members and convicts and Apple subscribers for making the show run. I really do appreciate you, and I hope you're enjoying your bonus episodes and commercial-free early releases, which this week, because of the holiday, you probably won't get the commercial-free early release 4 or 5 days like you normally do ahead of time, but you will get it. So the story I want to tell today, and of course, I've known about it since it happened, and it's a horrible, horrible story. And
it goes on actually to right now. So, but I'm going to take you back. Well, let me name it. So I'm going to name it Antoinette Frank. Okay. So Antoinette Frank was a black female born on April the 30th of 1971, y'all. And she lived in Opelousas, Louisiana, and with her dad and her mom at the time. Opelousas, Louisiana is about 15 miles north of Lafayette. It's about an hour and 15 minutes from Baton Rouge due west down Old Highway 190. And it's Cajun country, right? It's back then, and the shit, certainly when Antoinette was a kid, or I'll just call her Frank. Frank was a kid, it would have really been a small town. But, it's known for several things. Besides the Cajun culture, one of my favorites is Billy's Boudin, and they call them the Boudin Mafia, but it's a specialty meat place. You can go in and get anything from smoked boudin to regular boudin to cracklings and chicken cracklings and all kinds of stuffed pork chops, et cetera, et cetera. Now they're famous. They have I think 4 or 5 locations. But, I used to go there and play their high school football team when I was in high school and all that. It's just it's big city now. I mean, I say big city, it had like a Home Depot and stuff, but back then it was really, really small. So Antoinette, or Frank, lived with her mom and her dad. Now, later years in life, Frank would say that her dad was physically and mentally abusive towards her and that he was a drunk, right? Well, I don't know. I mean, who knows? But stay tuned to what happened to Dad and the end of the story. But at some point, something was shitty in the household because Frank's mama left her there with her dad. It's just like Splitsville. There's no mention of her ever again. So but and Frank grew up and she was a quiet student and basically like a wallflower, y'all. She wasn't a trouble to anybody or anything like that. But her sole goal, the main thing she wanted to become in life from an early age was a police officer. All right. And when she was able to, she joined the youth police program in Opelousas. It's like the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or whatever, but it's for cops. And specifically, they train them things, the 10 codes and just all kinds of stuff. They'll let them do ride-alongs and teach them in the radio room and all this stuff. And it's kind of like explorers or whatever you want to call it. Basically a good program for kids that are interested in being law enforcement professionals. And she did that. And she, did it all through high school. And she graduated from high school and she became a clerk for the Opelousas Police Department, okay? It's because she wasn't old enough in the state of Louisiana. You have to be 21 to become post-certified, y'all, and that's police officer standardized training. And once you get that, you can go to any department if they'll have you. But you can't do that until you're 21. So between the ages of 18 and 21, she worked as a clerk, right? She wanted to be a cop. And she completed the youth program. As soon as she graduates, she gets the job, and she's not carrying a badge or a gun, but hey, she's still right there involved in it. And the clerks handle everything day to day, from the reports to whatever, all the cop shit. All right. On her 21st birthday, she was excited and fired up about becoming a cop. Now, she didn't just want to be a local Opelousas Police Department officer. I'm sure they would have hired her right away. She'd been working for them for years and been through their program. But she reached outside the box and she shot for the highest that you could shoot for without a college degree, and that in law enforcement in Louisiana, and that would be the Louisiana State Police. Now, in my opinion, the only way you can go higher is if you go towards federal law enforcement, and you're not getting that unless you're coming out of the military after many years or you have a college degree. So she applies for the Louisiana State Police. Now, let me tell you about that. It's a hell of a process, okay? Now, remember, when I retired myself from law enforcement, I was at headquarters in Baton Rouge, and one of the things I would do was polygraph potential people that they were going to hire. And my polygraph booklet was a motherfucker. I mean, it's got everything from questions about your life from the time you can remember the first thing you stole as a kid to the time you were applying to be in a department. But it's a lot more than that. It's a many-stage process, and it takes months, okay? So you submit your application, and then they will bring you out if you're meet the criteria or they're interested in you, which, and back then they certainly would have been interested in not only a female, but African-American female. So you turn in this big, long thing, and then if they're interested in you, they'll start a background process, which they actually send out background investigators to your high school. They talk to your neighbors. They dig through everything. And now it's much more involved because they dig through your social media and all that stuff. But look, they run credit reports on you and all that. And if you pass through that part, then they will bring you in for a first oral board. And that's where you are interviewed. They ask some pretty generic questions, but I don't want to give them all away, but I'll give you one example. They'll ask you, let's say if you're a police officer and you're on duty with your partner and you respond to whatever at a grocery store and you see your partner steal something and put it in his pocket, what do you do? Well, of course, the right answer is you're going to call your supervisor and whatever and do. But they'll ask you a series of questions like that, and at the end, they'll send you out, and the board will vote and give you a number score, right? And if you meet the criteria, then only then you move to the next part of the process, which is you'll have to go out and do your physical PT tests, all right? And that's why I used to meet them for the first time. And when I began, was out of Just Tech, all these applicants would show up in their PT clothes, getting ready to run. Well, they had to bring that when I got there, they were making them fill out their polygraph booklets before the PT test, and then the polygraphist would take them in and schedule appointments and all that stuff. I was like, this is fucking redundant, right? I mean, if you're going to do it, if you know they're going to do it, give them or have them they acted like it was a big fucking secret what the polygraph questions, what that packet entailed. I'm like, you can cut all this bullshit out and all this time waste out. Give them that packet when they fill out their information and get it turned in that way before you schedule them for any further testing of PT or psychological or whatever. There's certain things that they can admit to, and a lot of them would admit to in that polygraph booklet that would automatically disqualify them. Right. And so that way you're not wasting more time and money. So I got that changed. And, but she would have done that. She showed up for the PT test and filled out the polygraph booklet and turned it in. And look, she passed the PT test, flying colors. They said she was fit as fuck and like beat half the men that were out there. She had been training for this. She worked hard for it. And, she took her polygraph evidently and passed. Wasn't with me. After the PT test. So you get scheduled for the polygraph, and she takes the polygraph, she passed it, and the last thing you have to do, I mean, they spend all this money on you, right? Now they have to get so many to get an academy class, is what they call it, right? Because and then half that academy class isn't going to make it through the academy because it's a tough shit and it's a tough school to go through. But she made it all the way through the process into the drug test. She passed it. But the last step is you have a psych evaluation. Now, a little story about that. when I took my first psych evaluation and they gave me this big ass, I don't know if it was 1,000 questions or whatever it was. I'm like, fuck me, because I didn't know I'm half crazy, right? So I went through the psych evaluation and I answered it the way that I thought a police officer would answer it. And which is like, they have questions like, sometimes do you get mad? Well, yeah. Do you like to read instruction manuals? I put, yeah, and I can't put anything together, right? But I figure cops like, to work with our hands and shit, whatever. So I lied on mine. I figured out, how they would want to hear it. And I turned it in, and had already been working. Oh, it was Southeastern Louisiana University Police Department. I'd been working for them for 6 months before I had to take my psych eval for whatever reason. And the Captain Todd, who was a retired trooper, called me in later on, and he said, Woody, we got a problem. I said, what's that? He said, in the history of the psych evaluation, you have broken all the rules, or you've broken all the history. I said, what do you mean? He said, if you score so many points to the negative, then you fail, right? You score so many points to the positive, then you get hired. He said, you're the first person they ever had that came back and your test score was a 0. So they sent me back, and then I answered it truthfully, and I passed. But anyway, she has to do this, right? And you have to fill out this big psych eval thing, and then you get brought in, and you're interviewed by a shrink, and then they write up their final evaluation on you. And usually, you get that far. Most people pass. Well, guess what? Antoinette Frank failed. And not only did she fail, and I'm not sure, it was probably Dr. Carrie Rothschild that was still doing them back then. I may be mistaken about that, but whatever shrink it was that she saw, they were like, fuck that. That bitch is crazy. Narcissistic, narcissistic is what they listed her as. Narcissistic, and no way in hell you can let her be a cop, because it's going to turn into a shit show. Sugar's turning into shit. Bad shit's going to happen, right? So they told her, hey, look, you know what? You have failed. And this is the reason why. Your test came back saying you're narcissistic and you have a high probability that you're going to offend and do all this bad shit. And well, she was pissed, right? She's been working her whole life for it. So what did she do? She went out and hired a independent professional to give her the same evaluation. And of course, that evaluation came back positive, right? She paid for it, basically. But fuck that. State police weren't having any of her. They learned in the past, if you don't listen to the shrink, you're opening yourself up for a shit ton of liability later on, because chances are they are going to do what the shrink says. All right. But it's not good enough for Frank. So what does she do? She starts applying to other departments. Now, she ends up applying with the New Orleans Police Department. And I told y'all in the past my story. That's where I was going to work. Literally, my first day, I was going to work where my transmission blew out, and I ended up meeting the sheriff here through my friend that worked for me in my PI business, and the rest is history. But she went through the process. Now, I went through that same process at NOPD. It's the same thing. You go in, fill out your basic stuff. They do basic background stuff, and then you got to go in and do your PT test, and then you got to go in your physical training test. Then you got to go in and do your drug test. Then you got to go in. The last step is a psych eval, right? And you go in, you clear through that, then they offer you your job. And like I said, I had taken mine but did not end up following through on it for reasons I already stated. But she did it in 1994, y'all. Shit. You better believe NOPD wanted a African-American female, but they passed her, y'all, and she got hired. All right. Guess what? Not only did she get hired, she went to the academy and she graduated at the top of her class. Remember, I told you physically, she's a badass, right? And like really, really ripped, really, really fit, no quit in her and all that. So she goes in and she aces all the schooling and the firearms and the PT, and hey, she's going to be a great cop. Graduate number 1 in her class, right? Fire. And now in 1994 in New Orleans, it was like the worst. New Orleans was the murder capital of the whole United States. Now, crack was big, and it was an epidemic. And New Orleans used to be, before Katrina, you could be at your $1 million home and go 2 blocks and there's a project, right? And New Orleans is broken up they call wards: 1st Ward, 2nd Ward, 3rd Ward, 5th Ward, 8th Ward, 9th Ward. And the convicts, we hear them when they're talking in prison, they're like, where are you from? The city? What ward, right? So anyway, it was horrible. Murder was every day. And let me tell you what else was really, really shit about it. And now I know this because it was like 2 years later when I applied and went through the process. New Orleans Police Department had the lowest pay of any metropolitan city in the United States of America. I mean, I think they were making like $16,000 a year, right? And which is fucking nothing. And to work in the most violent city, well, so they had a huge, huge shortage of police officers. Now, why would you go work for NOPD when they were making dick for money, right? And it's so dangerous and everything's so bad. Well, the one thing NOPD New Orleans Police Department had, was extra duty, okay? And that is where most officers really consider they make their money. And because you are 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, 2 off, 2 on, 3 off. So you're only working like 15 days a month. Those other 15 days a month, you can go, back then, I think extra duty was probably like $25, $30 an hour. But they had so many extra duty positions because fucking New Orleans was so dangerous. Every store, every restaurant, every place that had any kind of customers basically had to hire a cop to sit at their door so they wouldn't get robbed and shit. And that was appealing to me when I went through the process. I'm like, fuck, I can make a lot of money, being young and single and stupid and all that. But she graduates top of her class, Frank does, and she's in the shittiest pay, the most dangerous cities, the most dangerous city per capita wise in probably the world. But she did well, all right? And she went in and look, she took a new lease on life, and she got her own apartment. And guess who comes back in the picture at this time in life? Her dad actually comes back into her life, and she let her dad move in with him. He was homeless, and some people said that Frank was always trying to fix people, right? But she let her dad move into her apartment, and she was homeless. He was homeless, and she's working as a young rookie cop, right? And she picked up some extra duty on the side, which I'll tell you about in a few minutes. And she lets her dad move back in, right? And by all accounts, shit's going good now, and she's doing great as a cop. And she was liked by all accounts. She was liked by all her peers, and that's when she met a cop named Ronald Williams, and he became like her rabbi. Now, a rabbi, y'all, is Mr. Kearney Foster would have been mine, and that's a police term. It's not a derogatory religious term or whatever. That's a police term, like for an experienced officer that takes a young officer under their wing and brings them up, right? It's an affectionate term, a rabbi. So Ronald Williams takes a liking to her, and he becomes like her rabbi, and he even got her first extra duty at the same restaurant that he was working at, right? And they work like back-to-back shifts, so that he got her when he was working, she was off, and vice versa. But they took care of this restaurant. Now, during this time, I told you her dad had moved back in with her, and well, guess what? One day she says she came home and her dad was gone. So she even went to the NOPD, her department, right? And she said, hey, look, I need to make a missing persons report on my dad because he's gone. So they take it and they ain't gonna do shit with it, right? He's a grown man, and she knew they weren't gonna do shit with it. And he's been homeless before and all that, so it really never got worked, right? But she did make that report, and that's an official deal. So back to Ronald Williams, extra duty that he got her with the Vu family, VU, y'all, and I'm sure I'm gonna mispronounce some of these names today, but the names are important. It's a story that's important. And the Vu family that owned this restaurant, the Vietnamese restaurant, they were working all their extra duty, right? Well, the Vu family takes her in and treats her like a daughter. They were like, hey, you keeping us safe, and you doing a good job. And look, they fed her. And, when you're starving young cop with an apartment and bills to pay and shit like that,
Hey, y'all, let me tell you about Gobble. All Gobble meal kits are pre-prepped. That means less work for you and less waste in your kitchen. Their meal kits include everything you need so you can save time at the store or just skip that trip entirely. I got the box in and I had 3 different meals. I had a Kung Pao chicken, crispy fish tacos, and a beef bourguignon, however you say it. But let me tell you about the classic beef bourguignon. Look, it came with beef pot roast and a beef broth concentrate, red wine demi-glaze, cremini mushrooms, cipollone onions, mashed potatoes, baby carrots, and rosemary thyme butter. It was so easy to make. Literally like 15 minutes it took Cindy. And let me tell you something, and all the dishes were fire, but this thing was like a taste explosion in my mouth. It's just unreal. We've got to spend more time together and more time doing the things we love because everything came in this one single box right to my door. So see what a difference Gobble will make for your household. Right now, they're offering my listeners a fantastic limited time deal. You get $120 off across 4 boxes plus free shipping and free cookies. And let me tell you, those cookies, I ate one that was sin baked and it was delicious. Go to gobble.com/real life. That's GOBBLE.com/real life for $120 off your first 4 boxes. This offer is not available on the home site, so don't miss out. This is genius. It's taste explosions in your mouth like you never had. Hey ladies, are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? Well, you're definitely not alone. There are more than 1,000 hormone disruptors living in our environment right now. It's in your food, your water, the air you breathe, the clothes you wear, your skincare products. They all mess with your hormones. Then there's the natural hormone changes your body goes through, premenopause, menopause. And while it's a natural process, it doesn't mean you have to suffer through it. The good news is you don't have to suffer through it anymore because now you have Hormone Harmony, a formula made only with herbal ingredients that are shown to reduce hormonal symptoms in women of all ages. Hormone Harmony is not just a hormone support and supplement. It's become a phenomenon. Women can't stop talking about it on social media. A bottle of Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds. And the biggest benefit? Well, my wife says it makes her feel like her own self again. And that's what women mention over and over in the reviews. And there are over 30,000 reviews for Hormone Harmony. And for a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use code RLRC at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC for 15% off today. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC.
They have like leftover food, like somebody had placed an order and didn't come through, or they cooked too much or whatever, and she'd go in on her days off and eat and eat for free. So not only was she getting paid hourly, she got to eat and everything, and she's got this family, Vietnamese family that's treating her like a daughter, and everything's good, right? Meanwhile, she, as a police officer, everybody in the community liked her. And her thing was she began to work with at-risk youth, right? And trying to counsel them and keep them out of the gangs and shit like that. And she would even go on, believe it or not, to be recognized by the local Kiwanis Club, and they gave her Officer of the Month for New Orleans Police Department. Okay, well, everything looks good, right? Maybe it's not. So while she is on duty, she gets a call about a shooting, and she has to go work it, and she has to go to Charity Hospital to interview one of the victims. Okay. Now, Charity Hospital, y'all, I've been there on Saturday nights in law enforcement capacities, and back then it's no longer in existence, but back then it was considered the best trauma unit in the United States, if not the world, because New Orleans was so fucking violent. And this is a charity hospital, and everybody that got shot up came through there. And I was there watching they were wheeling in gunshot victims bleeding all over, and people putting people's heads through the wall and shit. And I'm sure I've talked about that on previous episodes. But she goes, like I've been so many times, you have to go interview the people and get more information, whatever. And when she goes, the shooting victim's name that she met was Roger Lacaze. Okay. He was 18 years old. All right. Now, Roger was a gangster. Okay. He came from a broken home. He had dropped out of school as a young kid and joined the gang. But as a young kid, as a young teenager, he fathered 3 kids. Okay. And how you going to pay for it? Right. I mean, you got no education, you got nothing else. And shit, you can't father 3 kids in one day. I mean, I guess you could with 3 different women. But this is an ongoing process, and he's got to pay for it. Well, what does he do? He becomes a drug dealer in the gangs. Right. And he had an older brother who was a drug dealer also. And his brother got shot and was paralyzed. And so Roger took over his brother's position in the dope game and the selling dope. And that was in 1994, y'all, when Roger was shot and taken to Cherry Hospital. So Frank goes in the hospital, interviews Rogers, and there's immediate attraction. Frank certainly knew he was a dope dealer, and but everybody's here because 2 people had an attraction and they screwed and made a baby, right? So she keeps up with Rogers, and when he's released from the hospital, they begin dating. Well, a little bit of a problem, right? Now, and she's in her young 20s. He's 18, gangbanger, dope dealer, father of 3 kids already, and now she's going to start dating him? Well, I'm pretty sure there's a fucking ethical violation in there somewhere, right? But anyway, that happened, and then they really, really started hooking up. I don't know if she thought she could fix him, like people had said she tried to fix people all the time, and but she did it, and Rogers loved it, right? Because he's got a cop in his pocket, and so they began secretly seeing each other, and according to her, they fell in love. She began meeting up with him when she was on duty. Now, I guess if you're in the heat or if you're in heat for somebody or whatever, you want to see him all the time. I guess I can remember being that young. But she starts meeting him when she's on duty in her patrol car, right? And he then began to ride with her in her police car while she's on duty. And it's crazy. So then there are accounts, y'all, and that she would use her police car to pull over other known drug dealers, and then they would rob the drug dealers at gunpoint and take their drugs from them. And this is while she's on duty with her gangbanger lover. What happens, you would think that drug dealers are going to report that shit. Who are they going to go report it to? You got a cop that just robbed you, right? I mean, they're like, pretty sure we'll take that loss. So Roger's is living it up, and they're living up. There was even one cop, y'all, that saw Antoinette get out on a crash scene, and her unit needed to be moved, and Rogers got out of the passenger seat and even drove her police car out of the way. Right? She would tell other officers that Roger was a rookie cadet that she was training. So, I mean, that's fucking crazy, right? Well, let me take you to March the 4th. And at 1:55 a.m. approximately, a crime in progress call came in of an armed robbery with shots fired. And it came out as a 108 with officer down, right? So it's a disturbance, shots fired, officer down. Now, when you get that, every cop, good or bad or whatever, is going to respond, and just like you would want them to do for you if that call came out and you were the one that was down. So everybody rolls, right? And the first two cops that got on the scene saw two women running from the building, and guess what? They recognized one of the women as Frank, right? And the first cop asked Frank, says, "Hey, where are they?" And she said, "They're inside." And they told her to stay put, and they entered the restaurant to clear it. I mean, to find the bad guys or clear it, and find out who's down and what happened. So when they began clearing the restaurant, they saw the police officer, Ronald Williams. Remember? Frank's rabbi? They saw him laying face down, and he had been shot 3 times in the back and the head, and he was in his uniform that he had been wearing that day for the extra duty at the restaurant. So you can't stop there, right? You don't know if the killers are still in the place or whatever, so you got to clear the restaurant. They're proceeding, weapons drawn, and they turn and come into the kitchen, and they find 2 more bodies, both of them who were on their knees as if they'd been praying, and both of them are shot. Well, the male was shot 7 times. The female had been shot 3 times. And they're in the praying position, y'all. Super violent, right? So then they're looking around. There's nobody else. It doesn't appear to be anybody else in the restaurant. They clear it, and they get out, and they're like, holy fuck, man. And they start to work at this crime scene, and everybody and their brother are showing up by this time. It's just a really horrible situation. So they go, the detectives arrive on scene, and they go to Frank, and she told him, she said, "Hey, look, the girl that she was with, they saw the 2 females running out. Well, the girl she was with was a Vietnamese female." And she tells the detective, she said, "Look, this is a daughter of the owners." And, she's in shock, her name is Shavu. That's how I spell y'all. But she's 23 years old, at Chavu. And the detectives tried to question her, and she answered them in Vietnamese, and she appeared to be in shock. So Frank says that, hey, look, the victims that are inside of the restaurant that are killed, they were her family members. And they were her brother and the sister, and they were 24 and 17 years old. And she said, look, there's another brother that's 19 years old that's still missing. And look, the detective, if I'd have been the detective on that scene, I'd have been, holy fuck, I got it going on, and this is going to be a slam dunk, right? I got an off-duty cop who was in here and saw all this shit and knows these people, and it's going to be a great witness, right? Well, the Frank goes on and she says she and Ronald Williams worked separate shifts as security at the restaurant, and that she had stopped by to eat when she heard the gunshots. She ducked for cover, but said she caught a glimpse of the shooters. And when the detective's like, okay, tell me, what you saw. She said, I saw 3 men wearing ski masks, and they got away in a car, right? And she said this was the time of the night when the owners would have been counting out the cash for the day. And robbery gone bad. She said, I work there, extra security. I know what's going on at this time of night. I stopped by to get me some food, but they would have been in the back counting the cash, and that's what happened. But the detectives wondered why Frank didn't go in to try and stop it, right? Ronald Williams was her homie, her rabbi. And then I also wondered why she didn't call it in. And why would the robbers execute everyone, especially an NOPD cop in uniform? Didn't really add up, right? Shit, robbers happen probably 10 times a day in New Orleans at the time. They weren't killing police officers, and generally they robbed the places that didn't have police officers on duty, right? So it didn't add up. And look, your brother officer is dead on the ground, and you better fucking believe they're looking at everything. So, and I'm just wondering, why didn't she do something to stop it? And why didn't you call it in? But anyway, Frank's didn't want to leave the daughter's side, right? She was like clinging to her, and the daughter was talking only in Vietnamese. And the detectives kind of thought, hey, maybe she's taking care of the girl or whatever. And, but Frank acted like she was questioning the daughter for the detectives, right? And then the detectives standing there, Frank evidently knew some Vietnamese, and she acts like she's questioning her when all of a sudden, now this lady's name, the daughter's name was Chow. When Chow says in English, she says, don't you know? You were there. And this was the first time that she had spoken English, y'all. That's like the major red flags, all right? And then I'm going to go back for a minute and I'm going to tell you a little bit more detail about this family and these victims. And I'm going to stop it for today because the rest of the story is too important to try to rush through. So the name of the restaurant was Kim An, Kimanah, and it was a Vietnamese restaurant run by the VU family in New Orleans East. And so on this night of March 4th, 1995, right, a year or so after Frank was became an NOPD officer, the family's in there. Ronald Austin Williams, who's a police officer I told you, who was the rabbi to Frank, who was dead on the ground, shot numerous times. And he had been working as a security guard there at the restaurant, naturally to supplement his police salary. And he had joined the New Orleans Police Department in 1991 and was married and a father of 2. He was brutally executed trying to make a few extra dollars because he wasn't getting paid dick with NOPD. He's brutally executed trying to take care of his family. And what you would have thought was a robbery gone wrong. So I'm going to end it there for today because the rest of the story needs to be told, and it needs to be told in depth because it's about to get really, really, really good. And I say good, it was bad, it's horrible. It's probably the most horrible case ever. And then I'll tell you how it all wraps up and everything else and what actually happened that night. So take a couple minutes and talk about all this good podcaster stuff I'm supposed to say. Again, I want to thank each and every one of you, Patreon and Convicts, Apple subscribers. Again, I hope you're enjoying your benefits. If we owe you something, let us know. Y'all go check out the Real Life, Real Crime Community app. All right. It's downloaded for free in the App Store, and it has all things real life, real crime, updates on cases, episodes, forums, chat groups, games, whatever. It's free. All right. Go check it out, because I'm going there first every single day before I go do the rest of my social media. Now, I'm getting requests like probably 5 or 6 a day from people around the United States and some of the world that want me to look at their loved ones' cold cases. But most of them are sending it, see me on Dateline or whatever, and they're sending it to my regular Real Life, Real Crime Facebook page, where I have like 5 different Facebook pages. And I don't get to I don't have enough hours in the day to go read all these messages stuff. Y'all, if you want to message me through Woody at realliferealcrime.com. That way I'll know I'll read it. That's my email through the app. And remember, I'm going to the app and I'm going to answer everybody in there and chat with them, et cetera, first before I go to Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and everything else that I have to do. So go download it. I think there's 18 or 20,000 people on it already. And it's, you don't get censored. I got put in Facebook jail this week. And again, for like the 1,000th time. Nobody censors that page but me. Now, on the page, you'll also find Bloody Angola, which is a podcast that Jim Chapman and I do together. You will find Real Life, Real Crime Daily, which is a podcast that I do with Jim Chapman and Mike Agravino. Everything's there, y'all. So just go and download it, check it out, and I think you'll enjoy it. And y'all, I want to make it really clear, and I know y'all get this, so I'm starting making it clear on the Real Life, Real Crime Daily Show, that Real Life, Real Crime, the original episodes, just me by myself. For now, they're going to be released, continue to be released on Tuesdays. I think that's going to move to Monday, but all the new people come to the feed and they see now we're doing 4 daily shows a week, and then we have my regular show, so that's 5 days a week, right? And they see all the daily shows, and some of them don't like the daily show and it come from my stories, but they're sort of like, oh, I can't find the stories anymore. Well, guess what? They're there 1 a week. So I'll start updating y'all more on those episodes. We'll make sure we'll put that disclaimer on each Real Life, Real Crime Daily episode. Real Life, Real Crime Daily is absolute fire and love. The numbers are stupid great. It's a whole different thing. I quantify it as the Howard Stern of true crime, and we bring you some really great stories, and we have a lot of fun too. But I mean, true crime isn't always fun, right? So there's a lot of hard stuff to hear, but we'll bring it to you, and then we give you our perspectives, et cetera. So y'all check that out if you haven't. And if you haven't, take a second and go to iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a review. It helps the show. And Bloody Angola, again, go to it and Google it, look it up. The stories on Bloody Angola are fire, and if you like Real Life, Real Crime, you're going to like Bloody Angola. So with that being said, I am going to wrap up this episode, and I will conclude with the hardcore stuff to hear next week on Antoinette Frank. Even if you think you know the story, you don't know all of it. And I'm going to tell you how the cow ate the cabbage. But I love and appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. LOPA, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency. Y'all, you know it's my jam. They save lives. It's a nonprofit organization. They not only help people be organ donors and recipients receive the organs, they are absolutely take care of these families through this horrible process, which it's a horrible process, which ends up being a hero process, right? I mean, it's not going to happen, obviously, unless somebody dies, and under just the right situations, and where they're able to take the organs and give the gift of life to other people. But it's very, very important. And, I would urge you to please become an organ donor. There's too many myths out there, y'all, about this and that and another. You can go look up the YouTube channel by Shane McBride and Missy Jewell, and they dispel a lot of these myths. Also, LOPA has their own podcast where they interview heroes and heroes' families, and they dispel a lot of the myths. It's very, very important. People are dying every minute because they're waiting on organ transplants. And if you want to become an organ donor, go to lopa.org. Take about 2 minutes, fill out the questionnaire, and become an organ donor, right? And then one day, if they need you and the situation is right and you get the chance to be a hero, other people will be able to go on and be alive because you became a hero, right? And you don't have to be from the state of Louisiana. If you are a lifer from the Yukon, right? And you want to become an organ donor, go to lopa.org, take 2 minutes, fill out that questionnaire or whatever it is, fill out the form and become an organ donor, okay? And I'm Woody Overton, your host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And until next time or ever, don't let me catch you down on Murder Bayou. Peace.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to or during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
And the wolf is at your door. You're running so that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down no matter by you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real
Build up to Black Friday with savings all month long at Lowe's. Get up to 50% off select major appliances, plus take an additional 10% off when you buy select major appliances. And don't wait to pick up holiday inflatables under $20. Don't wait to save, in-store or online now, because Lowe's knows deals. Valid 11/6 through 12/4. Cannot be combined with additional discounts. See Lowe's.com for details and qualifying items while supplies last.